Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. I welcome all of you to His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj's daily call. Today we are going to continue with the Srimad Bhagavatam series. Today's verse is from the chapter Passing Away of Bhishma Deva, and the verse number is 1.9.17. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Guru Maharaj, you can please take over the call. I'll just share my screen.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 9th chapter, verse number 17. Tasmadidam Daiva Tantram Gyaryasan Bharatasavam. Taskinu Vihito Nata Natapahi Prajapavo. O best among the descendants of Bharata, Yudhishthira, I maintain therefore that all this is within the plan of the Lord. Accepting the inconceivable plan of the Lord, you must follow it. You are now the appointed administrative head, and my Lord, we should now take care of those subjects who are now rendered helpless. With Prabhupada's purport. The popular saying is that a housewife teaches the daughter-in-law by teaching the daughter. Similarly, the Lord teaches the world by teaching the devotee. The devotee does not have to learn anything new from the Lord because the Lord teaches the sincere devotee always from within. Whenever there is a show is made to teach the devotee, as in the case of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, is for teaching the less intelligent men. The devotee's duty, therefore, is to ungrudgingly accept tribulations from the Lord as a punishment. The Pandavas were advised by Bhishma Deva to accept the responsibility of administration without hesitation. The poor subjects were without protection due to the ban of Yudhishthira, and they were awaiting the assumption of power by Maharaj Yudhishthira. A pure devotee of the Lord accepts tribulations as favors from the Lord. As the Lord is absolute, there is no mundane difference between the two. Ma Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharya Nirasesa Sindhuvari Patyapna Vivikatani Panchakopa Dhruvischa Kripa Siddhi Kaleva Chapati Karanam Bhavana Yo Vaishnava Yo Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasavi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Well, both in the translation and in the purport, there are so many very essential points that have been made. We have the example in one particular pastime in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 7th canto, wherein there was a fight between the demigods and the demons. And the demons had created this lake of elixir of immortality done by one of the chief demons whose name was Mayadhanavan. Mayadhanavan was a sorcerer and mystic and also aligned with the demons. Now the war was going on. Every time a demon was killed, his body would be thrown into that lake and he would come back alive, even more powerful than he was prior to that. So the fight was going on and the demigods couldn't get anywhere because As they killed the demons, they would come back in a more powerful way. And then they were gradually losing the battle. And so it became a concern. And so the demigods, I think it was Indradev, he took the time and he went to Lord Brahma and explained the situation. Because when the demigods get in trouble, they go to Brahma for help. And Brahma can solve it, then fine. If he can't, he goes to the Lord to get the solution. In this case, Brahma said, all right, we will make a plan. So Brahma incarnated, because these the powerful demigods, they can also change their forms. He incarnated as a cow, and he asked Lord Shiva to incarnate as a calf. And they came, both of them, to the battle scene, and they start drinking up the elixir of immortality that was created by Maya Donovan. When the demons were observing what was happening, that this cow and calf were now taken away, their rejuvenation, formula, they became concerned and they alerted Maya Donovan. Maya Donovan saw the situation and made a very interesting statement. He said, "This is the plan of the Lord. And therefore, I cannot do anything to counteract it." And eventually, that led to the demons being defeated. But what happened was Prabhupada describes this particular incident in a very interesting way, where he says that you make your plan, and I make my plan, but all these plans are useless. What's important is the plan of the Lord. And that is the plan that will work, because it's ordained by the Lord himself. So understanding, well, what is the plan of the Lord is the business of a devotee. We like to make our own plans on how we want to do things and how we are going to become Krishna conscious. And that is nice. And we can say that is normal to do that. But one should be aware of that there may be a higher plan on how Krishna wants you to perform your devotion and service or live your life in such a way as to actually achieve success. So a devotee thinks, what is the plan of the Lord? What does the Lord want me to do in this situation? Not that what my mind tells me what to do, or what my associates tell me what to do, but what Krishna has ordained. Now we might say there is a big plan of the Lord that we all can accept, and the Lord wants everyone to go back home, back to God. That's his plan. He comes and he sends his representatives to bring each of us back home, back to Godhead. So that's his plan. Anyone who assists the Lord in making that plan happen becomes very dear to the Lord and is guaranteed to go back home, back to Godhead also. But in a general sense, in execution of our devotional service, we need to understand what we need to do. Shia Yudhishthira there, he's a little bit bewildered. He cannot see the plan of the Lord clearly because he's overwhelmed by lamentation of so many saviors that died only because of putting him in power. But this was the plan of the Lord. So therefore, he was not responsible for whatever happened. He was simply given that position by the Lord because he was qualified to rule. He's thinking, because everything is centered around me in terms of giving me the position to rule the world, so many animals, so many men died, so many women were left without protectors. Therefore, there was so much problems now in society with the women being unprotected. Unscrupulous people will come and exploit these unprotected ladies. So yeah, he is lamenting in that way. But Bhishmadev says, no, all this is within the plan of the Lord. And the word inconceivable means we may not understand exactly what it is, how the plan is being executed, but we should learn what is the plan of the Lord, at least in the principle of how to carry out the Lord's desire. And therefore, he ends by saying, now take that responsibility, lead the world and help those who are rendered helpless. Bhishmadev is giving good advice to Yudhisthira Maharaj. And Krishna arranged for Bhishmadev to do that because he knew he would listen to Bhishmadev. Even if the Lord spoke it, Yudhisthira would not be convinced, but because Bhishmadev is speaking it. So that's sometimes, this is how the Lord does things. Just for example, he uses his devotees to teach others, as it says here. Prabhupada uses the example that when a man gets married, now he has a new wife, the mother of that man invites the new wife over to the house, and she teaches the daughter-in-law by teaching her own daughter. So the daughter-in-law associates with the family of the husband, and she sees how the daughter is being trained by the mother, and therefore the daughter-in-law learns how to take care of her husband. So in the same way, the Lord will use his devotees to teach the world what he wants to teach, or what is needed. And the devotee becomes the instrument. Here, Prabhupada says the devotee already knows. He doesn't have to learn anything. He knows what the plan of the Lord is. The Lord reveals it to him already. But still, in order to teach, therefore Arjuna was put into a type of yoga maya and became bewildered and acted like an ordinary person. And he was also criticized for being like that by the Lord. But it was the plan of the Lord in order to teach others. So the Lord can do that with his surrendered devotees, and the devotees don't mind because they know that whatever the Lord does, even if he puts me in tribulation, as it mentioned here, he favors the devotee in that way. And there's no difference between his apparent favor and his apparent putting in tribulation, because it's all for the benefit of everyone, including the devotee he puts in tribulation. So that kind of faith is not easy to attain. It's, even if we theoretically can accept that as being the reality, we have a tendency to still rely on our own ideas and how to do things and how we can get ourselves out of our own problems. Of course, we should use our intelligence, but we should always depend fully on the mercy of the Lord. Because by depending fully on the mercy of the Lord acts, and when he acts, he shows the way to the devotee, how the devotee can make progress in devotional service, or how the devotee can relinquish those things which are holding him back in his spiritual progress, which is due to our various attachments that we have, material attachments. This is a very instructive verse. So it says here, the devotee's duty is to ungrudgingly accept tribulations from the Lord as a benediction. Bhakti Vinod Thakur gives one nice statement in reference to one of the songs he writes, and it's more like a conjecture. So he says, what is my happiness in devotional service? What is it that I find very satisfying in my devotional service? And then he mentions a few things, but then he rejects all of those things he mentions, and then he says, but my actual happiness is the difficulties I endure in serving you. These are my actions, happiness. The devotee doesn't mind difficulty. In fact, he sees that as being a favor of the Lord. Prabhupada says that also. He accepts tribulations as favors for the Lord. Because the devotee knows that with full faith in the Lord always works for the benefit of the devotee. And therefore, he can accept suffering or apparent suffering, not something, but apparent suffering. Suffering is a state of consciousness. For some people, something is suffering, and for some other persons, something is not suffering. But even if it causes difficulty, a devotee doesn't suffer. He simply accepts that difficulty as an opportunity to increase his devotional service or his attachment to Krishna even more. When Krishna was at the rasa dance with all of the gopis, at one point he left. And all the gopis were completely lost. Krishna has gone. And so they went mad looking for Krishna. And in looking for Krishna, they start talking to the forest creatures, the trees, the plants, the animals, the rocks, all speaking in a, like mad women, trying to find out where's Krishna, where will he go? So the Lord also did that in order to show the world the love that devotees have. He also does that in order to glorify his devotees. But at the same time, he's also showing them, giving them a chance to express their deep attachment to the Lord in the mood of separation from the Lord. They can't think of anything but finding the Lord, and in that mood of separation, they're feeling great transcendental anxiety, trying to once again regain themselves. So a devotee is always in the best position. But if they don't take advice from others who are qualified to give advice, such as a spiritual master or someone who is on the same level as one spiritual master, then I was called monodharma. Monodharma means the dictations of the mind or the religion of the mind. The mind will always give us something that it seems like nice, but it may also turn out to be the opposite. We should not necessarily listen to the mind, we should listen to the intelligence and connect the intelligence with Krishna. Then that type of receptivity allows one to discriminate between what is the plan of the Lord and what is my own ideas. Believe me, Krishna has a plan for everybody. Each and every one of us. And he's using the material energy along with his various energies, spiritual energy and material energy, to bring us more and more engaged in his loving relationship. And it's interesting how he teaches. We should just reflect on it point again. He teaches the world by teaching his devotees. Therefore, the Bhagavad Gita was not just simply for the purification and the edification of Arjuna. It was for everyone from time immemorial. That's why the Bhagavad Gita is a timeless teachings of God. They apply to everyone in all circumstances, no matter who one might be. But Krishna used Arjuna to do that. Also, just like Krishna allowed for Maharaj Parikshit to apparently act outside of his normal character, like becoming angry when he didn't receive a glass of water when he went into the hermitage of Shringi. I'm not Shringi, but Shamak Rish. He was traveling by horse. He was tired. He was thirsty. He came in to get a little bit of water from this one hermitage, which was in his kingdom. The Rishi, or Shamak, was in meditation. And so he asked Shamek for some water, but there was no response. So he became disturbed, took a dead snake, picked it up with a stick, and put it around the neck of this yogi, Shamek Rishi. He said, "Here's your garland." And then that was later found out by the son of Shamek Rishi, who was also a Brahmana. And he became angry that his father was insulted that way. And so he overreacted and cursed the king to die, Maharaj Pariksit, in 7 days. But this was all the arrangement of the Lord. It would be highly unusual that Maharaj Pariksit would act like that just for not receiving a little bit of water. But apparently that's what happened, and the Lord used that in order to arrange for Sukadeva Goswami to come and speak to Srimad Bhagavatam, which was to benefit the whole world. So this is how the Lord does it. Many times he takes his surrendered devotees to teach all of us how we can practice Krishna consciousness in the most exemplary way. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Krishna Guru Maharaj, thank you so much for the wonderful class. You always reminds us about we have to follow the Krishna's plan, and also always sharpen our intelligence to connect to Krishna. Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj. Dear devotees, I'm sure you'll be having a lot of questions. Please go ahead with your questions. You can unmute yourself and please turn on your cameras. That would be very nice to see all of you. Thank you so much. Guru Maharaj, while devotees are thinking for the question, so I'm just thinking like, so we have this mind and we have this intelligence, but and Lord is there within us, and He's always guiding, but we don't listen to the Lord sometimes, and especially I'm very much confused that who is talking or who is giving instructions, like either mind or Lord. So sometimes we are unable to decide on which way to go. So even though we know ultimately Krishna's plan will work, but how do we listen, Guru Maharaj?
Yeah, that's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. The mind is completely free from all. I think what is the verse? You can go and you can read the verse from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse number. I believe it's verse number 7. Chapter 6, verse number 7.
Verse number 7, Guru Maharaj?
Yeah. It's interesting.
1 second.
Yeah, Jivatmana. Yeah, this is good. Jivatmana Prashantasya Paramatma Samahita Sitnosna Sukaduke Shiramana Pamana. The one who has conquered the mind is super soul is reached. For any reach, he has attained tranquility. For such a man, happiness and distress, even call on it. And this honor all the same. So when the mind is controlled, then you can hear God within the Lord. When the mind is not controlled, then you're going to get various messages coming from different desires, in other words. So it's not easy to hear God within the heart, but as you mentioned, and it's correct, that He's always talking to us. He's always guiding us constantly. But because our minds are too restless or disturbed, can't hear. So we have to learn how to control the mind. And the best way to control the mind here says, help us as the yoga system. But what does that mean? It means to practice meditation on the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. When the mind is fixed on chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, then you know the mind is controlled and one can connect with the super soul. The mind is not peaceful, then you can't connect with the super soul. Even though the words are being spoken to you by Krishna, you can't hear them. You usually hear the vibrations of the mind. So it's to reach Krishna. Receptive.
The Maharaj can't hear little bit. I couldn't hear the previous statement.
What did you miss?
Guru Maharaj, your voice was breaking, Guru Maharaj. I couldn't hear properly the last part.
Just the last part.
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah, I think I just emphasized that same point, that when the mind is peaceful, the super soul is reached. When the mind is conquered, the super soul is reached. And then one can hear Krishna within the heart. When Prabhupada said, when one's mind is fixed and there's no alternative but to follow the dictations of the Lord. Savasija Sani Visto Matat Smiti Jnanama Overnicha. Krishna said, I give remembrance, I give forgetfulness, and I give knowledge.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Yeah. Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj.
Otherwise, you'll hear other voices, the voice of the false ego.
Mm. Yes, Guru Maharaj, I understood. Yeah. Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj. Devotees, any questions?
And
I
if
don't
you're
see any raised hand.
not sure, you can check what you hear from what your spiritual master. What
Guru Maharaj, your voice is very much breaking, Guru Maharaj. I don't know. Previously it was okay, but now suddenly, I don't know why.
All right, let me switch my microphone.
Yes, Guru Maharaj, please.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, that's great, Guru Maharaj. It now is very clear. I think you should use these headphones.
They're not mine, though.
You can take it from whoever it is, Guru Maharaj.
I don't want to steal somebody's stuff, you know. That's not my program.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Sridevi Mataji, you want to go ahead?
Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my most humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Guru Maharaj, as you were speaking this particular verse today and talking about the importance of understanding Krishna's plan, I was remembering my very first meeting with you, and I asked you this question. I said, how will I know what is God's plan for my life? I was sitting in the audience and you were the speaker, and I asked you this question, and immediately one of the Indian boys, he piped up and he said, what is the need to know what is God's plan for your life? And then you gave a very beautiful answer. You spoke at length and you explained that a man of intelligence doesn't live like a stork with its head in the sand. He tries to find out what is God's plan for his life. And then he went on to explain that we can find that out by taking shelter of the Lord and the Lord's pure devotee, the spiritual master. And from then on, I've been harassing you by asking you questions. Thank you for giving me shelter.
Still asking me what's God's plan.
I'm still trying to find out, Guru Maharaj. I still don't get it, no matter how many times you tell me. I'm so unfortunate. But I'm happy simply having the shelter of your lotus feet.
Okay. All right. We'll have to increase the means by which we can.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Guru Maharaj.
We lost Guru Maharaj.
Yes, yeah. Right. Suddenly, video got stuck and Hare Krishna. Guru Maharaj. No. I think he'll join again, Mataji. Yeah, he got disconnected. Yeah, join. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, are you able to hear me? Guru Maharaj, you have to unmute.
Okay.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Yeah. Thank you, Mataji, for sharing that. Thank you so much. Dear devotees, I don't see any hands raised. If you have any questions or comments, this is a very wonderful topic. We can just meditate on this based on our daily life. Please go ahead with your questions.
Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Please
Mataji.
accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Lotus Feet, and all glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna. Jai Ho.
Hare Krishna. Guru Maharaj, I was just wondering when you were mentioning about the plan. So should we never plan and depend on the Krishna only, or should we limit our plans in the
No.
Krishna?
No, you should plan and depend on Krishna. If you plan and depend on Krishna, then if it's his plan, it's good. If it's not, he'll change it. If you depend on him, that's the factor that makes the difference. But I mean, it's not like we remain without any intelligence and don't do anything. No, we have to use your intelligence to execute devotional service. But your intelligence is just the effort you're making in order to serve. But ultimately, it's the Lord that gives the results.
So Guru Maharaj, even in Krishna consciousness, if we are, say, we are facing tribulations in some devotional service, so how do we understand that it's not the plan of Krishna? You should not struggle with this.
What is the tribulations?
Sometimes people do struggle with the devotional service, or maybe with.
Yeah, the struggle is there because we still have material tendencies, material attachments. When you don't have any more material attachments or material tendencies, material desires, then the devotional service is easy and natural. So that struggle comes because we're still not on the level of bhakti yet. We're trying to get to that level.
Okay, thank you, Guru Maharaj. I think that very much answers the question. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, keep trying.
Yeah.
And when we pray to Krishna, we get ideas, and we also get mercy.
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
My dear Lord, I'm in this situation. I don't know what to do. So please help me. And you'll get something. We're just so conditioned to depend on our own intelligence to do everything. That's our problem. We use the intelligence, but we use the intelligence as a means to depend on Krishna. That's the basis of the intelligence. Arjuna had to fight. Krishna told him, it's not your fighting that's going to win the war, but still you have to fight. You have to try, but you should know it all depends on the Lord for the results. Arjuna didn't want to fight at the beginning, and then Krishna had to encourage him to fight. Once he accepted that, and the Lord told him, now that even though you are fighting, it's not dependent on you for victory. But still, the Lord got him to the point of doing his service before he didn't want to do his service. So we have to do our service, and we have to do it in the best possible way. But still, with all that there, it's still the remaining factor is the Lord, because he's the ultimate principle of all existence. Everything comes from him. Everything is controlled by him.
So, Guru Maharaj, so basically it is, even if we are facing any struggles, we should just pray to God and with wholeheartedness.
Yeah, we
That's
should
the
always
thing
pray
we
to God in happiness or in distress. You should pray. Not that only when you're in a distressful situation do you pray. You should pray in all situations.
Okay, Guru Maharaj. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ribo.
Hare Krishna.
Devotees, any more questions? Today, I don't see any more questions. Yeah, Vrindavana Prabhu, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Guru Maharaj, it's related to previous discussion point, what Namrata Mataji mentioned. So, how to really understand what is God's plan for us and what is Krishna plan not for us? Because many times situation comes in our life on a practical note, which are not as per our desired plan, whatever we thought through. Then, as you rightly said, that we can always say, Krishna, we are in this difficult situation, please help us and guide what we should do. But also, if we don't not get any signal, should we try to change that situation based on what we should feel, or we should just go along with that thinking this is Krishna plan?
In the day-to-day execution of our devotional service, we just have to use common sense. And that common sense comes by learning the principles of how to execute devotional service. And it's not much difference from living an ordinary life, except as the consciousness is directed towards Krishna rather than towards oneself. Now, but when it comes to major decisions, if we have the intelligence and the understanding, we may be able to understand But if we don't, then immediately we should go and inquire from the spiritual master. This is the situation. I need your guidance. Or if the spiritual master is not available, someone who is on the same level as the spiritual master. But he's not going to be there every second to tell you what to do. He's going to give you the guidance you need in order to execute your service. And then you learn how to do things. You learn how to execute things in such a way that you maximize the amount of time available. You do things in such a way that the mind and senses are focused on whatever you're doing. And you do things understanding that it's an opportunity to serve the Lord. But then when we run into these bigger problems, like big decisions that require maybe some complex arrangement in order to carry it out, we may have to approach a senior devotee and get some advice. Our society is structured in such a way as to have the availability of others who can also help us aside from the spiritual master.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you. It's really helpful.
It's practical. Everything in devotional service is very practical. The qualitative difference is the consciousness, that's all. Consciousness directed towards Krishna, towards devotion to Krishna, devotion to his devotees, as opposed to satisfying one's own senses or the senses of one's immediate extended family members. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I will.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for such a nice question. Revati Mataji, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for this wonderful class. So my question is, Guru Maharaj, you mentioned like suffering is a state of consciousness. So when a person falls sick, we experience pain and lamentation because of our consciousness. But it's not very easy because when person really falls sick, I mean, immediately we, have that lamentation. And how can we, get understanding that, okay, it's not just a body, it's not very easy to come to that level.
What is the question?
So Guru Maharaj, like you mentioned, like suffering is a state of consciousness. So when we suffer, we experience pain because of the consciousness, because we are in the body. But when a person really falls sick, when he's undergoing some severe things, bodily wise, I mean, we experience so much lamentation. I mean, even though we understand, but it's not very easy that, to come to that level, like, okay, it's body that is suffering, but we are like not this body. So how can we develop that, come to that level or understanding? Because it's a natural thing that we experience a lot of pain and grief when something, goes like when someone is like, sick or like, some challenges.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Mm-hmm. So I still don't understand your question.
So My
You're just speaking about some philosophical points, but what is the actual point of your question? I seem
so
Yeah, Mataji, please go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, so Guru Maharaj, like immediately when we hear like, someone is sick or we are going through some bodily things, we experience that pain, lamentation. It's not easy, like it's a natural thing that comes out.
yes, so that's part of life.
So how can we actually get over that, like, come to an understanding that, it's just a body that is suffering. It's not, so it's not very easy because even though we practice so much, as soon as we hear like someone is sick, we experience that, pain and grief.
That means you're not situated in knowledge. You're situated on the material platform of material happiness and distress, which are always going on back and forth in different degrees. Situated in knowledge is that as long as you have a material body, there's going to be difficulties.
Okay.
That's the knowledge. Is the body means suffering. Body means suffering. But you don't have to accept the suffering as suffering. You can accept it as that's just the way it is. It's just some difficulties that I have that come by way of having a material body. You get sick, or some part of the body breaks down, or something doesn't work. I don't know, something. The mind is in distress because of somebody close to you said something wrong and is hurting your emotional body. And so but one should be detached from that. One should be fixed in Krishna consciousness, that knowing that all of these are not happening to me, they're happening to the body. That's all. We're not callous about someone else's suffering. We try to relieve their suffering by giving them knowledge or even giving them some personal care. That's normal. But when it comes to our own, we just think, oh yeah, it's my body and I have to deal with it. I have to tolerate it. It's the way the world is. I mean, what can you do? If you don't want to suffer, go back to Godhead. Since material world is meant to give you trouble.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
You're thanking me for what?
It's difficult, but as you said, like constant practice and hearing, chanting, it will come to that. Yeah.
One is, everything is under the control of Krishna, either directly or through the material energy.
Yes.
One of our senior sannyasis, he has terminal cancer, and he's not wasting time trying to run this way and that way to different specialists, and he's just fixing his mind on Krishna and performing his devotional service and waiting for the time when he can leave the body. And so he's not in distress. He knows that this is the nature of the body, that you have to give it up at some time, and Krishna has chosen at this particular time for me. And so rather than running around and getting all distressed out and wasting time, he's just fixing his mind on Krishna, detaching himself from everything materially, and staying focused on doing his devotional service. And that way he's preparing his consciousness for pure devotion, and then when the time comes, he'll go back to Godhead. That's all. We should be doing that now, not running around and trying to mitigate all of our different problems. Just focus on Krishna and become Krishna conscious. Learn to tolerate all of these little things that go on in the name of suffering and enjoyment. Why waste time? I mean, time is short.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. We have a question on chat by Narsingalila Mataji. She is asking, Dear Guru Maharaja, I really like this verse. The Brahmana said, these people are not the cause of my happiness and distress. Neither are the demigods, my own body, the planets, my past work or time. Rather, it is the mind alone that causes happiness and distress and perpetuates the rotation of material life. Could you please share some thoughts on this matter?
Yeah, that's the ultimate principle. It's the mind. The mind can make heaven out of hell and hell out of heaven. Prabhupada tells the story of the two boys who were on their way to the prostitute. And as they were walking along, they passed the kirtan program, and devotees doing Harinam kirtan. And one boy said, oh, the devotees are here chanting. I think I'll go with the devotees. And so he goes with the devotees, and his friend says, no, I'm not going to go. I'm going to the prostitute. So he goes on his way. So when the boy is in the prostitute's house, he's thinking, oh my God, my friend is so intelligent. He's using his time and energy to become Krishna conscious. Here I'm becoming degraded, wasting my time in this sense gratification. And then the other boy who was at the kirtan, he's thinking, my friend is in the prostitute's house. He's enjoying like crazy. Here I am chanting. I don't really want to be here. I wish I would have went with my friend. So Prabhupada said, who's better off? It's a matter of consciousness. Prabhupada tells the story of one man, some cruel man, and he had a little son. And so he had a chicken, and so he cut the head off the chicken. And the chicken was jumping around, still the body was jumping around. And the little boy was crying and the man was laughing. And he was thinking, the man was saying to his son, oh, just look how he's jumping around, ha, 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 and he's laughing. And the son is crying. So both are seeing the same thing. It's a matter of consciousness. So the mind is the factor. Krishna speaks a lot about the mind. He says one should elevate themselves by the mind and not degrade themselves. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. One who controls the mind is the best of friend. One who fails to do so, his very mind is his mind is his only enemy. It's all based on the mind. There are people who are suffering from material sicknesses, but their consciousness are on the spiritual platform. And there's others who are completely healthy and their minds are just dragging them to hell. The mind. So put Krishna in your mind and then you'll be always okay. And then whatever obstacles or whatever you meet in life will, when you're attached, the worst thing is even worse. When you're unattached, apparently worst thing is just routine. All based on attachment, and the mind is the source of all attachments. So a devotee has to learn to become attached to Krishna, to become attached to devotional service, and most important, to be attached to the association of devotees. That's the most important thing we have to do. We should actually be eager for the association of devotees. That kind of attachment frees one from all other forms of attachment.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Namrata Mataji, you raised your hand. You have any more questions?
Hare Krishna. Is it fine, Guru Maharaj, if I ask one more question?
Yeah, you have a half hour to complete your question.
Okay. So, Guru Maharaj, my question is about compassion. Especially devotees are always said to be compassionate. So, how do we understand that there should be limit our compassion?
Well, there is material compassion, and then there's spiritual compassion. Material compassion is compassion for the body, which is based on the wrong principles. Prabhupada gives two examples. Both happened during the time when he was living in Calcutta, when he was a young boy. And the most obvious one, there's two stories, and both of them are very poignant in giving the point. One story is that there was one young boy, and his mother died, and so his father was already gone. He had no shelter, so his auntie took care of him. He was a young boy. So his auntie really wanted to take care of him nicely, but the boy was somewhat mischievous. So he would go around and steal things, cause trouble. And the auntie would know that, but she didn't care. So she was thinking, she didn't want to correct him. She didn't want to chastise him. So she let him go on doing all his nonsense. And then finally, when he grew up, he killed somebody. And when that happened, then he was taken to the court, and then he was put before the judge. His auntie was in the courtroom, and she was crying, and the judge sentenced him to death. And as he was just before he was being let out of the courtroom, he said to the judge, "Can I speak to my auntie?" And the judge granted it. So he went over to her. She's still crying. So he went over and he got really close to her, and as hard as he could, he bit her on the ear. And she jumped back. And he said to her, "You are now crying now. It's too late. If you would have taught me what was right, you would not be crying. It's too late now." Misplaced compassion. She didn't want to correct him, chastise him. She thought, I want to just, be nice to him all the time. Although she saw what he was doing was wrong, she didn't take care. Prabhupada tells another story. One young boy, 3 years old, he has typhoid fever. And the doctors told the mother, "Don't feed him, because if you do, he could die." So the mother was following that very carefully, and the boy is 3 years old. He doesn't understand that he can't eat. And every once in a while, he asks his mother for food, and she tries to tell him, "No, it'll make you more sick." So one day she had to go out, and she had a daughter also. The daughter was about 11 years old. She said, take care of your little brother while I'm gone. And if he asks for food, don't feed him, because he could die. So she left. And as soon as she left, the boy started crying. "Oh, please make me some parathas. Make me some parathas." So the daughter was thinking, "Oh, my little brother is so hungry." So she made some parathas for him, and she fed it to him while the mother was gone. When the mother came back, she was so angry, she started chastising the daughter really heavily. That, You could have killed him by eating my food. And then the daughter couldn't understand why she's being chastised. She was thinking my brother was hungry and I wanted to feed him. She didn't get the message from her. So yeah, this is called misplaced compassion. People beg money and then you think, oh, I have to give money to the beggar, but that beggar will use the money in order to get some alcohol or drugs, and that'll make his life worse. Misplaced compassion.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much.
So real compassion is to give people transcendental knowledge. That's compassion. Then they can solve their own problems.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Direct help or direct financial helps are not good enough. The direct financial helps are not good enough.
Sometimes, depends on the situation. You have to discriminate. Well, just like we give food to people, we have our Food for Life programs. And that's, we don't give them food because food is not what they need. They need something transcendental or spiritual, so we give them prasadam. And then satisfies their hunger, at the same time purifies their consciousness to some degree.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. So any more questions, devotees? Guru Maharaj, I don't see any more questions. We are up to the mark of the hour. So can we end the call here?
It's up to you.
Yes, Guru
You're in charge.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. So, dear devotees, any more last minute questions or comments? Yeah, Dhanvantri Das. Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah, please go
ahead. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada, all glory to you. You mentioned this story about chicken. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
You mentioned the story with the chicken. So I was maybe 10 or 11 years old, grandmother. So she cut the throat of the chicken. She put the chicken on the floor and asked me to put my foot on the chicken that she doesn't jump. So I couldn't do that. It was really terrible.
Yeah. When you're young, you're more sensitive. When you get older, you become a little bit more callous to, the sufferings of others. Doesn't have to be like that, but that's usually what happens in the material world. Yeah, Prabhupada mentions that story. That the young boy was crying and the old man was laughing.
And I have one philosophical. Okay.
A devotee doesn't like to see others suffering, nor do they want to cause others to suffer. And that's a devotee. And even an ant, they don't want to cause problems with an ant, what to speak of a human being. Devotee is compassionate. They always feel for the unhappiness and the suffering of others.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask one non-philosophical question. So I wanted to ask: is there a free place on Eco Government village place for this retreat?
You
I didn't
contact,
sign.
yeah,
I
contact
didn't
Mother,
sign myself.
yeah, contact Mother Dimple, and she can give you all the information you need. You have to go to Dimple. She's in charge of that whole program.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is some space open, but I wouldn't wait any longer.
Okay, okay. I will send the message. Okay,
Okay.
okay. Thank you.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj. I think any more questions or comments, dear devotees? Okay, Guru Maharaj, there are no more questions. I think we can end the call here. Thank you so much for this wonderful lecture and nice question answer session. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai, Candramauli Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai Prabhupada ki jai. We'll see you all. Tomorrow is Charlotte.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Yes. I'm sorry, I forgot. Tomorrow is class with Bhakti Sangha devotees, Charlotte, and the verse is 6th canto, 2nd chapter and 27th verse, 6.2.27. So I'll post the link in the WhatsApp group, and you can also join. Thank you so much.
And the call starts 20 minutes
Yes,
after the hour.
12:20 p.m. UK time.
12:20, not 12 o'clock.
12:20. Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Okay.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Well,
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.